Welcome to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. We're here every single Monday and Monday through Friday. And the program actually drops at midnight. So anytime you want to listen to the program, feel free to do that. And we're here. And of course, obviously, the program is on for days, on for weeks. And depending on the platform, I mean, if you go to our home platform, we're at Podbean, and you subscribe there, then you can hear every single program we've ever done. Back in our radio days, which was only about a month ago, that ended all the way back several years, and to the present, just straight internet, new format, everything else. Well, here we have Moses coming down Mount Sinai again. And one of the things to keep in mind is, and this is throughout the Bible, God communicating with his people. Over and over and over again, you're going to see God communicating with his people. You see Jesus doing it, and you see this happening here. So what we're going to see is that Moses has this experience with God that leaves his face brilliant, filled with light, similar to what we see in the Transfiguration, where Moses and Elijah both encounter Jesus. Jesus himself is just filled with light, and we see this intense reality there. Now, in that case, the apostles who were there, Peter, James, and John, weren't allowed to say anything until after the resurrection, and you can find the account of that in Peter's letter. But this is obviously long before that. And what is happening with this experience of Moses being filled with this light, so much so he has to put a veil on his face when he is speaking to the people. And as I read recently, an interesting point that I didn't pick up, which was obvious, that when he's speaking to the people, he had to have a veil on his face so that they wouldn't be just distracted, which is a very poor word in that case. It's so much more than that, by the brilliant light that's coming from him. And at the same time, when he's speaking to God, he has to remove the veil because he's speaking. It's a direct contact between him and God. So this is a powerful dynamic that happens. And as we look at this powerful dynamic, we see something beyond just what's happening here. We see God communicating to his people about his powerful glory. Now, keep in mind, remember, this is a powerful thing. Since he is teaching who he truly is, and since that is what's going on, that him communicating to the people by God communicating to people by the light on Moses' face is communicating to them the power of him as the living God, or a better way to put it, as God of the living. And so when we recognize that, we see this powerful reality of God communicating to his people through this visual sign from Moses. Why is this so important? Because remember, they've left Egypt, and did any of these gods do the same thing to anyone in Egypt, even the Pharaoh? And the answer is no, because they don't really exist. And this is the important thing. And remember, this was part of the revolution. This whole thing, this was all part of the revolution, where God was demonstrating his power over these other gods, and now he is demonstrating the people the power that he is showing to them. This is who is leading you. Now, understand that this may leave an important question in their mind, and that important question is, who is this God who is doing this? This is an important question. Who is this God that is doing this? Do you understand? In other words, they've never seen this before, and now they're understanding this question. Who is this God? Now, God communicates through Moses that he is the God of the living. He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So we understand that he is the God of the living. That's who he is. What else do we know about God? Very little. As a matter of fact, Jesus reveals more about God. But up until then, there is nothing we know, and we know that God is so holy, we can't mention his name. This is powerful truth, and even today, we only know God as the God as the Father. We know him more intimately through Jesus, but in the Old Testament, we only know God as the God of the Hebrews, the God of Israel, the God of Judah, the God of the Jews. Whatever names that are developed over the centuries, that's all we know. We don't have any further information. As a matter of fact, most of the information we have about God comes to us from our Christian roots. So we understand through Christianity, God is the Trinity. We understand that. So we have to realize that this is a powerful message. And so that same message, which is this intimate relationship between God and Moses, is also communicated to you and I. It is a greater message, because since the death and resurrection of Jesus, we have this intimate relationship with Jesus Christ and with the Holy Trinity, which is Father, Son, Holy Spirit. This is powerful. Now we see such powerful things. Now, you know, I work in hospital ministry. Well, talking to the priest who is teaching me all of this, who's currently been the chaplain for 30 years at this hospital, in one of these hospitals that I'm working at, he brought out to me the powerful healings that he has seen happen only through the sacrament of the sick. It's all he's done. He says, obviously he's done other things, but in these cases, all I did was give them the sacrament of the sick and they were healed. It shows the healing power of this sacrament. But what's that? That's God. And so God working through him, which again is something the time of Moses people did not see. We see it intensely in the Acts of the Apostles, which is the New Testament, but we don't see it. Like, let me give you an example. How many examples of healings do we see in the Old Testament? We see some. We're seeing some, but we don't see a lot. And who brings these healings? So, for example, contrast Moses with St. Paul. And what do we see with St. Paul? A famous story, one of my favorites, a man falls out a window. Paul is preaching so long, and he dies. And Paul immediately goes out and resurrects him, brings him back to life. How many times do we see that in the Old Testament? We don't. We don't see that very much in the Old Testament at all. We do see something else, which leads to people believe in a heresy called Marcionism, that the Old Testament God and the New Testament God are two different gods. They are not. But we do see more stern miracles. We see Sodom and Gomorrah. We see the silencing of Moses' wife. And we see so many miracles in that sense. We see the defeat by Gideon over his enemies. We see, things along those lines. We see the prophets proclaiming that disaster is going to happen if they don't change their ways, or people don't change their ways, and they don't change their ways in these disasters which are predicted. So we see a different kind of miracle, but this healing, this glory, all this stuff, we don't see this to the same level in the Old Testament. We see it in the New Testament. So we see the glory of God in a new and different way. And this is important to understand. So what we're seeing here is God demonstrating his glory. Now, why do we see these two different aspects? Remember, God is about time. He's about time. It's about time. No, I mean, do you remember Time Tunnel? Oh, not Time Tunnel. What was it? It's About Time. That was the name of the show. It's about time. It's about space. No, God is about time. Do you understand that? And in that, as time passes, people's understanding grows, and he can do more. So in the time of Moses, time is has passed, but not to the level that is needed that we see in the time of Jesus. So God is still teaching his people about his powerful glory. This is what goes on. Now we're in a different time. And as I taught, fascinating. Put your faith in the sacraments. Now we see the manifestation of God through the sacraments that are done, and powerful manifestations of God through all the sacraments. Remember this. We have these priests that I don't like if you've listened to the program for long enough. It's not that I don't like the priest. I don't like their ministry, the exorcist. Now, do I believe in the ministry of exorcism? Yes. But these are celebrity exorcists. You can see them on YouTube. You know who they are, and they start teaching you all these messages. One of them, I'm not going to mention his name. One of them, I wouldn't believe him if he told me that Jesus resurrected from the dead. I absolutely don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth. I'm not going to say who he is. And now I really can't, because then you say, oh, now he can, whatever. I'm not going to. I absolutely disagree with every word that comes out of his mouth. And he's a celebrity exorcist. I don't like this stuff. And one of the reasons is they're talking about all these fireworks, and they're talking about, all the power they have and casting out demons. But I'm dealing with a priest who you don't know, who is not a celebrity exorcist, not a celebrity anything. And he's very well known in the diocese. And he is telling me that through these sacraments, which are more powerful than exorcism, he has seen healings, incredible healings of people, and telling you the power of the sacrament. And all of that power comes after the death and resurrection of Jesus, after Pentecost. So we don't see that in the Old Testament. But what we see is powerful signs of the glory of God as the people are being taught. So the other part of this is, as the people are being taught, they're learning. And as they are learning, they're understanding their faith. And as they are understanding their faith, they are coming to appreciate this powerful message, and they are coming to understand that they are partakers and also people who spread the message by their baptism and confirmation. The people in the Old Testament don't have any of that. They aren't called to be prophets necessarily. Certain ones are. They aren't called to spread the message. They're called to follow the law. This is a radical change that we see between the New Testament and the Old Testament. And in the Old Testament, everything is all about God teaching his powerful glory so that the people will understand he's speaking the truth. Then in the New Testament, people are participants in this glory. So they're called to spread the message of God, which is, again, people teaching of this truth. So you see this radical difference happen, and it's a powerful, radical difference that is incredible. We're going to be back on the other side of the break talking to Stephen Gesinski, who is the author of Film Forming Faith, and we're going to talk more about his book. You can find the book on Amazon. Just look him up. We're going to talk more about that also on the other side of the break, but just look him up. Gesinski, Stephen with a PH, and you come right to that book. And you can also find his channel on YouTube. Look up Catholicism and Coffee, he does with his wife, Beth. We'll be right back with the rest of the program right after this. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com, your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. Well, we're going to be going right into our interview with Stephen Gesinski in just a couple minutes. And we're going to be talking about some interesting movies. We're going to be talking about Star Trek First Contact. And do you know who the first Contact Star Trek... I mean, this is something that... It's one of those anachronisms. But if you could imagine, if you could go back and redo Star Trek, can you imagine if instead of saying elevator, they said Alexa? Can you imagine that? Oh, there goes Alexa. Oh, wait a minute. That's my Alexa going off again. That's why you always have to be careful of saying Alexa. You have to be very careful. You have to say Alexa. Otherwise, she hears and she'll react. Could you imagine if they did that? Or they could go redo the episodes and have, Captain Kirk going, Alexa, transporter room or something like that. Can you, Alexa, analyze it? See, you can hear Alexa in the background. Alexa, can you analyze these aliens that are coming forward? What are they? Oh, there she is. There she goes. So anyway, absolutely fascinating. But anyway, we're going to switch over. We're going to talk about Psycho. Can you this is one of the reasons why I was fascinated by the book. You can talk about Psycho in a Catholic context, and he does very well. Let's switch over again to Stephen Gesinski. Remember, this is us discussing his book, Film Forming Faith. It's a Catholicism and Coffee publication. You can simply just type in his name in the book. It's going to come up. His name is Stephen with a PH. Gesinski, Gesinski. It's available on Amazon, and it's got a paperback, it's hardcover, and a Kindle version. So you can find it there. So let's switch over to our interview with Stephen Gesinski. This is part 3, and we're going to talk about Psycho. So let me go to what I opened the show with, Psycho. And you do a really good job about, as a matter of fact, the lessons you bring up in regards to Psycho are, I just pressed a button and all of a sudden it went to the wrong page. Okay. Is the dangers of isolation and scrupulosity. Mm-hmm. And I haven't seen the movie, but everyone knows the plot of Psycho.
Yeah, overall.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty basic plot, and I mean, there's the joke of the MacGuffin, and the term that we use in filmmaking. There is this one thing that's driving the plot, but it's not really what the movie's about. Because the thing that's driving the plot is, I forgot the exact amount, $25,000 or something that goes missing, because a woman steals it.
Oh,
but that's not what the movie's really about. The woman who steals the money is not in the movie. Funny enough, Janet Leigh, Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, she's not in the movie for very long. She bites the dust pretty early. Is
that the shower scene?
Yeah.
Okay.
Marion Crane is the character's name, and she bites the dust pretty early in the movie. So, and it was a big deal back then because you're like, well, she's the biggest known actress, so she's going to be, leading this film. Nope. She does not last long. Maybe a third of the way through or so.
Oh, wow.
So the MacGuffin of the money, but the real driver of this story is the character of Norman Bates, played by Anthony Perkins. And the whole question of isolation, because I'll spoil the movie, and if you don't want to listen to this part, just pause or whatever. But in the film, you find out the reason he's killing all these people is he has a split personality.
Right.
Because he has multiple personality disorder, or There's a better scientific term for it now. I can't remember it offhand because they changed it since my psychology classes in college. But his split personality, he has one who's a very vengeful murder side, and then he has his normal personality, which is kind of a timid boy. He's that awkward 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old boy in the body of a 20-something-year-old man. So there was that. And the scrupulosity. I've been hearing a lot more about this because we talk about this in Catholic circles. They have these people who are so scrupulous about everything, and we don't. You can't tell if it's a front or if it's a real thing. And some of these folks are genuinely. There are times I'm seeing stuff online or whatever, and I'm just like, are you just playing this up, or do you genuinely need some, some spiritual or psychological help? And it makes me scared for these people. And then I tell this story in the book. We were driving, it was the week before my wedding, and we were with some friend of ours, our wedding photographer, who's a friend of my wife's, was talking about how one thing that she personally struggles with was scrupulosity. Thought about that, and then I looked up scrupulosity because I immediately think of Psycho, and then watched the movie, and I rewatched the movie because I have it, and went through that, and I'm thinking, well, if you're alone with your own thoughts, you're going to think all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm an only child, so I was on my own a lot. And I knew I struggled with my own thoughts and stuff like that. And as I say in the book, if I hadn't married, I would have probably become a hermit. And I wonder what would have become of me. And I don't think I'd turn into, multi-personality, knife-wielding murderer, but, you never know. You have one bad day and you break. And that's what happens with Norman. You find this out later on. And it's brilliantly done. Kind of got ruined by the sequels, apparently. I haven't watched all of them all the way through. But I don't want to watch and ruin, my second favorite movie of all time. So there you go.
There we go. I just had a technical difficulty. Okay. What was I going to say? The whole thing with Norman and that whole aspect, I did an interview with Stephen Rossetti, Monsignor Stephen Rossetti, and of course he's a psychologist. He's also does some exorcism stuff, but he's a psychologist, and he brought out that one of the things that really came out with COVID was just how damaging it was in its isolation. And he found, he said one of the lines in the interview was words to the effect of, we understand how God in his infinite wisdom called people to come together once a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, as you bring up, again, I haven't seen the movie, but I know the story, that isolation, that whole thing of, how damaging it is, which is what he brought out in the whole COVID thing, where people were so isolated. Now, most of the books, most of the movies I haven't seen, and I have to admit, speaking of COVID, I haven't seen any movies since COVID. And unfortunate, I'm one of the people who ended up just never got around to seeing movies after that. Star Trek First Contact, is that the original movie Star Trek?
No, that is the 8th Star Trek film.
Really? I didn't even know there had been 8. Wow.
There are 13 total.
Wow.
There's 14 if you count one that premiered on Paramount Plus, but I don't because it falls under the made-for-TV movie, and boy, howdy, they spent way too much money on it, and I heard it's terrible. I don't care to watch it because it undoes so much important canon, as has New Trek been doing for the past, about since 2009. I'm one of those purists about canon.
Good.
And if anyone wants to argue with me, I have someone who is more powerful than all of us combined. His name is J.R.R. Tolkien, who explains the importance of canon in storytelling. So I'll just have him do the talking for me because he knows more than I do. Heck, he wrote the English dictionary, hence why he got to mouth off to one guy arguing with him about the spelling of the multiple form of dwarves. And someone argued with him, and he goes, "Young man, I wrote the English dictionary. Basically, it was, don't try me."
We're going to continue with Steve in tomorrow's program. We're going to be talking about Star Trek First Contact. So we'll be continuing there. And it was interesting because, we talk about it tomorrow. You'll hear about it. I guess there have been 13 Star Trek movies. I didn't know that. And I grew up, I didn't grow up with Star Trek. I remember I was in the 5th grade, I think, maybe. 5th or so. Let me see. Star Trek 67. No, I would have been younger than that. Although Star Trek immediately went into some kind of syndication because it was such a popular program among its following, even though it didn't get the ratings. And one of my favorite aspects of it, a friend of mine pointed out, Star Trek was actually based on the reality going on in the world at the time. So I remember a particular Star Trek episode, and I've talked about it here, where there was this computer game, kind of. Now, this is before computer games, by the way. Pong wouldn't be invented for probably another close to 20 years. So this was a computer game where they would determine, these two countries playing a game, who died in the war, and then everyone who was labeled from a certain sector would have to walk to what I call the Star Trek death machine. And I've come up with several concepts that are based on that idea, the Star Trek death machine. But as a friend of mine said, you could take that program, whichever one it was, and they were actually addressing real issues being discussed in the news. That was obviously against the draft. It's so obvious it was against the draft. You remember at the time there was a draft, and they would use a bingo type deal where they would draw balls out of a cage as a kind of a drawing, and if your birthday came up as a low number, there was a good chance you would be drafted. If it came up as a high number, good chance you wouldn't. And it was a Star Trek death machine. So a lot of anti-war stuff at that time. And as you know the story, the Smothers Brothers got canceled because of their anti-war position. And fascinating. And of course, what ultimately really brought an end to the war was none other than Walter Cronkite making it clear that this war was in trouble, and Lyndon Johnson, who was worked for CBS, same network as the Smothers Brothers. And Lyndon Johnson said, if I've lost Cronkite, I've lost Middle America. So we're going to talk more about Star Trek and the first Star Trek First Contact tomorrow. Have a blessed day. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com, your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media.